summer of 2008, a girl was born in Kyrgyzstan, in its capital, Bishkek. She spent her first 3 years of life there, and then her parents made the decision to move to Ukraine, as by ethnicity they are Ukrainian, and her dad was offered a job there too, making it easier to build a future in a new country. That girl from Kyrgyzstan is me, and moving to Ukraine at 3 years old was fine at first, but I quickly learned the language and made friends. I considered both Ukrainian and Russian my first languages, and myself as a Ukrainian, which I still do, by the way. By the end of middle school, I began noticing the differences between myself and those whose families have lived in Ukraine for decades or even centuries. I remember a moment when I was the only one from my friend group who hadn't watched some local TV show which everyone else loved. The pure surprise on my friends' faces suddenly made me feel disconnected, not one of them. I even remember a short comment which was probably intended to be more of a joke, but nonetheless, 4 years later, I can still recall it. One person has told me that I was not a true Ukrainian if I hadn't watched the TV show. At the time, I used to overthink a lot and found a much deeper meaning behind that sentence. I was not a true Ukrainian. That thought had really never crossed my mind before, as I felt pretty local in that country. However, from that day, I never let go of it. It even gets worse when I realize that my skills in Ukrainian language are getting weaker with each day, as I don't speak it on a daily basis, not anymore. On February 24th, 2022, a war began, and that destroyed my mental health, which was already bad at the time. I was lucky enough that my parents decided to stay outside of the city during that week, allowing us to live quicker and safer, as during the escape west, none of the Russian army had gone this far. Not yet. We stayed in a house in the mountains relatively close to the border with Poland. I believed that a month had passed there, but it was only 2 weeks. During the time, me and my classmates stayed in contact daily, always updating each other on how things looked like in our neighborhoods. Some had left the city while others stayed at home. Later, my parents decided to move to Poland as their friends, who owned apartments in Zakopane, invited us as soon as the war began. Only the email got to us much later. We spent an entire day at the border, as many were seeking refuge too. I remember thinking that I won the lottery that I didn't wish to win, being an immigrant since 3 years old, and at 13 being given the title of a refugee. UNHCR says that by the end of 2022, 5.9 million Ukrainian people were displaced internally, and 5.7 million Ukrainian refugees fled to other countries in Europe, just like my family did. The first night after crossing the border, we spent at a hotel near the highway, as it was already late and my parents didn't have any energy to drive any further. After some rest and more hours on the road, we finally reached the apartments in Zakopane, which became a shelter for the next 3 months. During that time, my parents made me go to a local school, and I remember being scared to not understand the language, which I didn't at first. But around 2 weeks later, I learned the basics and could even speak some Polish too, as knowing both Ukrainian and Russian was helping me find the similar words and phrases, getting the hang of it much faster. I made friends with some other Ukrainian students from my grade, which later made me realize that sharing a similar background, worries, and having the ability to talk about such struggles created a much stronger bond than any common interest could. In just a couple of days, we would go anywhere in the group, in and outside of school. To the stranger's eyes, we looked like childhood friends, even though we have known each other for only a week. But some have returned back home and others went further. Just as the school year ended, my family and I also moved further west. We had to move further for my education and the need for a bigger city than Zakopane, which in 3 months we have known perfectly, every street and every shop. For the past 3 years, I have lived in Wrocław, a city big enough to not get bored of it after 3 months, and a city that offers great education for me. An international school is where I normalized being an immigrant and a refugee for myself, as there are many people from other countries, and some Ukrainians too. Now, you probably think that life of an immigrant and a refugee is full of struggles and never-ending losses, but is that necessarily true? The ongoing journey has taught me patience and tests it every day. It expanded my perspective on life, making me a more understanding and compassionate person. I began living in the moment more because I always found myself thinking that I didn't pay enough attention to the previous cities that I lived in. A common lesson, friends go but family stays, appeared over and over again in my life, finally teaching me the truth behind it I sometimes didn't wish to admit. Losing friends was hard, but creating a stronger bond with my family made it easier to face new struggles and celebrate achievements. Though my dad often says that we're not going to be local to any country we have lived in or are going to live in, which is true, I nonetheless try to find something good about it. Not being tied to any country means having the freedom of living anywhere, a privilege to live anywhere. I can create a community anywhere in the world since I wasn't assigned any in the first place. But I know that many other immigrants, refugees, or both like myself, may not face the struggles in a new country the same way that I do. Some appear like everything is amazing in their lives. Some find long-term friends and seem to be happy. However, I still think that each of us faces a number of problems on our own related to the sudden change in environments. And each of us still misses the home we left, at least a bit. The World Health Organization has asked many Ukrainian refugees about their mental health. And from those comfortable answering, 56% said that it would be beneficial to receive some help regarding the mental health problems. Other sources report an increase in anxiety, depression, and PTSD in refugees, which further proves the fact that we face a number of struggles, but most decides to go through them on their own. But new places are like new beginnings in life, and I choose to use them to the fullest. If I had not moved countries, a lot of opportunities would not appear. Important life lessons would not be learned, and many experiences would not be possible to have. This TED Talk would not be possible. Thank you.